fredagen den 20 september med mig, Jonas Malmborg. Den japanska centralbanken Bank of Japan kom med sitt räntebesked i natt svensk tid. Som väntat så lämnade chefen Kazuo Ueda och hans direktion den japanska styrräntan oförändrad på 0,25%. Den japanska inflationen befinner sig på internationellt låga 2,7% och under juni-juli så steg priserna endast med 0,4%. Bank of Japan de flaggar för en höjning med 25 punkter till 0,5% senare i år eller början av 2025. Tokyobörsen den drog en lättnadens suck. Nikkei Index var upp 1,98% vid stängning med stigande priser för bland annat Toyotas, Mitsubishis, Financials och Softbanks aktier. Och nu hälsar jag välkommen till vår gäst Hiromi Okazawa. Du är förvaltare på Handelsbanken fonder. And we'll have this discussion in English.
Yes, thank you very much for having me today.
We're very happy to have you here. About the news, Bank of Japan leaves the interest rate at 0.25. Was this what you had expected?
Yes, this time the Bank of Japan didn't hike rates because that the Bank of Japan is now have to monitor carefully about the financial policy around the world. And of course, they also have to watch carefully about domestic economy.
Kazuo Ueda, he says he wants to normalize the monetary policy without hurting the economy. Is he navigating wisely? A bit too cautious, do you think?
Well, I think he is navigating the policy very cautiously and wisely. And so I think he's doing the right thing.
He's doing a good job.
Good job.
Okay.
Yes.
Please stay with us, Hiromi,
Yes.
and we'll talk about more. We'll talk more about Japanese economy in general and Japanese stocks in particular. Men först fler nyheter. Ja, trenden på New York-börsen den var tydligt positiv under torsdagen som en fördröjd reaktion på onsdagens räntebesked från centralbanken Federal Reserve. S&P 500 var upp 1,7%, Nasdaq hela 2,51% under torsdagen. Techbolag som Nvidia, Tesla och Intel ledde uppgången. Återhämtningen är i sikte och lågkonjunkturen snart bakom oss. Ja, det förutspår Handelns utredningsinstitut, HUI, som kom med sin konjunkturrapport nu under morgonen. Sänkta räntor, stigande reallöner och marginella prisökningar ger hushållen ökad köpkraft. HUI de räknar med att svensk BNP ökar med 1% under 2024 och 2,3% nästa år. Och idag, denna fredag, har det gått 1 år sedan noteringen av cybersäkerhetsbolaget Ubicos aktier på First North som skedde genom att bolaget fusionerades med SPAC-bolaget ACQ Bure. Det innebär att det nu blir fritt fram för huvudägarna Bure Equity, medgrundaren Stina Ehrensvärd och vd Mattias Danielsson att sälja aktier i bolaget. Håll utkik under börsdagen denna fredag. Nu vänder jag mig åter till vår gäst Hiromi Okazawa. I mean, the situation in Japan is somewhat reversed compared with the US and Europe. Explain to us why is this?
Yes. So in order to understand why the BOJ started rate hike and policy rate is still as low as 0.5%, we have to reflect a bit on the history of Japanese economy. And Japan has suffered from decades-long deflation after the bubble burst in the 90s. And the zero interest rate policy was implemented for a decade to stimulate economy. it's only recent years that we started to see virtuous cycle of inflation and positive real wage growth. And so now the BOJ is set to normalize rates policy, and they gradually start raising rates.
But the normalization is going slower than expected, or is it as predicted?
Yes, in order to normalize the economy rates, the Bank of Japan has to carefully monitor the domestic economy. Especially important indicator is real wage growth, and we have already achieved positive real wage growth. And also they have to monitor financial policy around the world.
And the Nikkei index was up 2% yesterday and up 11% this year. Are you optimistic? Will this continue? Will it be a good year for the Tokyo stock market?
Yes. Well, I believe personally there are backdrops that support upward trending of Nikkei. First of all, Japanese economy entered into virtual cycle of inflation, and that means that companies started raising prices, and corporate earnings and margins have gone up. Also, there is a Japanese corporate governance reform led by Tokyo Stock Exchange. And Tokyo Stock Exchange encourages listed companies to enhance corporate governance, improve capital efficiency, and react to shareholders' returns. And a lot of companies reacted by share buybacks and also dissolving cross-shareholdings, so which leads to shareholders' returns. So if this continues and the market appreciates it, and I'm sure that there is a room for the Nikkei to rise even further.
Okay, interesting. How will lowered interest rates in Europe and US, do you think it will affect big Japanese companies as Toyota, Hitachi, and Fanuc, Takeda's positively, or?
Yes, I see. Yeah. So we have seen a big rotation of rate cycles in Japan and the US and EU. Rate hikes in Japan, rate cuts in US and EU.
Yeah.
And this big opposite direction rate cycles affect exchange rate a lot. And Japanese yen has suddenly started appreciating, and that definitely is in general negative to exporters. But Japanese exporters are no longer actually exporters because they do business outside of Japan, and they make money in overseas local market where they operate, manufacture, and sell their goods and services. So the actual exchange rate impact, currency impact, is diminishing in real sense.
Interesting. And which companies is benefiting mostly from I want to ask you about the banks, because banks, good times for banks is when interest rates is going up. How is the Japanese banks doing?
Yes. And Japanese banks are actually direct beneficiary of rates hikes because they have a better and improving interest margins. And also likewise, insurance companies, they tend to have exposures to JGB, Japanese bond, and they have better returns from their portfolio in JGBs.
Let's talk a little bit about your fund, Handelsbanken Tema Japan. The biggest holdings are Hitachi, which is a manufacturing company, as we all know, and Mitsubishi Financial, a bank. Is this typical? Is this reflecting the Japanese stock market in general, would you say?
We are keen to invest in quality companies that create values over time. And Mitsubishi UFJ Bank and Hitachi, they do have good businesses and good management, and they are doing very good job on capital allocation and investing in growth businesses and shareholder returns. And the companies like that kind of traits and characteristics and qualities are the typical holdings of our portfolio.
But your portfolio, is it a Japanese index, would you say?
No, we are definitely not index fund, and we try to achieve alpha from different stocks from outside of index as well.
Well, we can't talk about Japan without mentioning demographics. 36 million Japanese is over 65. I guess that reflects on the discussion we had earlier about deflation. Is labor shortage a problem for the Japanese economy and the Japanese companies, would you say?
Yes, shortage of labor is a focal point of discussion in the society. And there will be a Liberal Democratic Party election, presidential election this month. And 9 candidates have applied for it. And every candidate talk about labor reform as their top agenda. And
so will we see parental leave and daycare centers for kids in Japan in a couple of years, do you think? And what about the immigration?
Yes, yeah. The government has already spent enough subsidies for daycare and all the infrastructure, social infrastructure that support the working mothers, and so that's been doing very good.
Reforms are underway.
Are on the way. Yes. About immigration policy, Japan is a bit hesitant, still hesitant to opening up the country to immigrations, but they are trying to selectively find people to immigrate to Japan.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here today, Hiromi. Domo mashita arigato.
どうもありがとうございます。
Ja, det var allt för oss denna morgon. Tack till dig som tittat och tack till vår gäst Hiromi Okazawa från Handelsbanken Fonder. 11.45, då är det dags igen här i EFN. Då kommer Börslunch idag med Jesper Norberg och Kajsa Söderberg som summerar makroveckan tillsammans med Danske Banks Maria Landeborn och Comprisers Kristina Salberg. Missa inte det. Tack för denna morgon.